All right, so today we're going to tackle one of the biggest, most talked about entrance exams in India, the TAT. You know, it can feel like this massive mountain you have to climb. Well, we're going to give you the map. We're going to break down the entire journey start to finish and turn it into a path you can actually walk. So let's get started.
So you're thinking about getting an MBA, right? It's a huge, exciting step for your career. But let's be real, with that big ambition comes an even bigger question. Where do you even start? It's kind of like standing at the bottom of a giant mountain, looking up with absolutely no map. It can be pretty overwhelming.
Well, that's exactly why we're here today. Your journey, that whole climb, it starts with one thing, the CAT exam. And we're not just going to talk about it. Oh no. We are going to map this whole thing out for you, step by step. So all that confusion and uncertainty, it's going to turn into a real, solid plan you can actually follow. Okay, part 1, getting in the race. These are the first steps of your marathon. So where does any marathon begin? At the starting line, of course. And for the CAT, that means your official registration. This isn't just about filling out forms, you guys. This is you officially getting into the race.
Now, I know looking at a list of steps can feel a little intimidating, but trust me, it's actually pretty straightforward. First up, just double check that you're eligible. You're generally looking at a bachelor's degree with around 50% marks. Good to go? Awesome. Next, you hop onto the official site, iamcat.ac.in, and get your user ID and password. That's your key to the whole thing. After that, you'll tackle the application form. It's got 6 parts, so just take your time. Then you upload your documents, your photos, signature, the usual stuff. Pay the fee, hit submit, and boom, you're in. The main thing is just one step at a time. Don't overthink it.
Section 2, sizing up the challenge, or, as I like to call it, knowing the path ahead. So you're registered, you're officially in the race. What's next? Well, you wouldn't run a marathon without knowing the route, right? You'd want to know where the hills are, where the water stations are. Same thing here. We need to understand exactly what we're up against.
The very first thing you need to lock into your brain is this number, 120 minutes. That's it. 2 hours. That is the entire exam, from start to finish. And let me tell you, every single one of those seconds is going to count. And those 120 minutes, they get chopped up into 3 separate chunks, 3 sections. You get exactly 40 minutes for each one. And here's the kicker. You cannot jump back and forth between them. Once your 40 minutes are up for a section, it's gone. That's it. This isn't just a small detail. It's absolutely fundamental to how you're going to build your strategy.
So what are these 3 sections? First, you've got VARC. That's verbal ability and reading comprehension. Basically, it's testing how well you understand and use English. Then comes DILR, data interpretation and logical reasoning. This is the puzzle section, where you get charts and weird logic problems to solve. And finally, there's QA, or quantitative aptitude. Yep, that's your math section. Now, the scoring is super important. You get +3 for every correct answer, which is great. But you get -1 for a wrong answer. That's negative marking, and it means that just guessing randomly, yeah, that's a really, really risky strategy.
All right, part 3, the year-long marathon. And this is my favorite part. Your training montage. We know the rules of the race. We know the course. Now comes the most important part of this whole thing, the actual preparation. This is where you put in the work. This is where you become a champion. Cue the epic music.
Okay, so a whole year. That sounds like forever, right? But with a good plan, it's totally manageable. Look, the first 3 months or so, that's all about building your foundation. You're just getting comfortable with the core ideas, maybe doing some daily reading. Then, for the next few months, you start to apply what you've learned. You start doing timed practice, taking a mock test every couple of weeks to see where you're at. After that, we're shifting gears again. You're tackling the really tough problems and taking mocks every single week. And those final months, that's all about hitting peak performance. You're taking mock tests like crazy, 2 or 3 a week, really getting into that exam day mindset. See, it's a ramp up, from crawling to walking to running. And hey, speaking of mock tests, if there is one thing you remember from this entire explainer, let it be this. It's all about quality, not quantity. It is not a race to see who can take the most mock tests. Anyone can sit down and just take a test. The real work, the magic, happens after. It's about spending a couple of hours digging into every single question. Why did I get this wrong? Where did I waste time? What concept am I still weak on? That analysis, that is where you actually get better. That's the secret sauce. Of course, let's get real here. Not everyone has the same amount of time. Your schedule has to fit your life. If you're a full-time student, hey, maybe you can put in 6 to 8 hours a day, breaking it up by subject.
But what if you're a working professional? That's a whole different ballgame. The key for you is not about cramming. It's about being consistent. Maybe that looks like 2 really focused hours every weekday, hitting 1 section per day. Then you use your weekends for the heavy lifting, taking a full mock test, and then doing that deep analysis we just talked about. It's a super effective strategy. It's all about making the time you do have work for you. Part 4. Executing on game day. This is your final showdown strategy. Okay, deep breath. All of that training, all those late nights, all that analysis, it all comes down to this one day. The time for learning new stuff is over. Now it is 100% about executing the plan you've built, flawlessly, under pressure. So let's talk about the simple stuff first, the things you can control to avoid any last-minute stress. Think of this as your pre-game checklist. Do you have your admit card printed out? Check. Do you have that passport-sized photo? Check. Got your original photo ID? Check. You want to get to the center nice and early, maybe an hour to an hour and a half before. But honestly, the most important thing on this list is that last one, a calm, focused mindset. You have put in the work, you've done the training, now is the time to just trust yourself. Okay, now for the most important tactic once you're actually sitting at that computer. Time management is everything. In each of those 40-minute windows, your job is not to answer every single question. I'll say that again. Your job is not to answer every question. It's to get the most points possible. And how do you do that? By hunting down the easy and medium questions first. Leave your ego at the door. If a question feels too hard, do not get stuck on it. That's a trap. Mark it, move on, get the easy points, and only come back to the monster questions if you have time left. I'm telling you, this one strategy can literally change your entire score. And we're on to part 5, crossing the finish line. Let's talk about what happens after the exam. So you've done it. You walked out of that exam hall, those intense 120 minutes are over, you can finally breathe. But while you've crossed one finish line, the race isn't quite over. A whole new part of the journey is just getting started. So once the results drop, things start moving really fast. First, you'll download your official scorecard and see that all-important percentile. Then, the IIMs and other colleges start releasing their shortlists based on those scores. If your name's on that list, congratulations, you've made it to the next round. And that usually involves 2 things. The WAT, which is a writing ability test, and the big one, the PI, or personal interview. And this is a really important reality check, so listen up. Your CAT percentile is huge, it's massive, but it's only one piece of the puzzle. The top business schools, they're looking at your entire profile. They're creating what's called a composite score, and that includes your grades from 10th grade, 12th grade, college, your work experience if you have any, and of course how you do in that writing test and interview. Think of it this way. A great CAT score gets your foot in the door, but it's your great overall profile that actually gets you the seat. So there you have it. We've mapped out the whole thing, right? From that very first click on the registration website, all the way to getting that final interview call. You conquer an exam like the CAT with smarts, with strategy, and just plain old persistence. But that brings us to one last question to leave you with. Once the exam is over and you're prepping for interviews where you have to talk about your goals, your life, your dreams, is the real test, the test of who you are and what you really want, is that test just beginning? Something to think about as you get ready to start your own marathon.